Coming up on BG24 Sports, the baseball team was in action against Miami, who came up on top of the Battle of the Birds.
Plus, Goliath has fallen. We'll take a look at how Kentucky's perfect season fell short.
And the NCAA Frozen Fours this weekend will tell you everything that you need to know before the teams take the ice. We'll have all this and more right here on BG24 Sports.
It's un-Falcon believable coverage that you won't get anywhere else. This is BG24 Sports.
Welcome to BG24 Sports. I'm Terry Lash.
And I'm Juan Pimiento.
And the BG baseball team was in action against Miami this weekend. They had a doubleheader on Saturday and a game on Sunday, and they won the series 2-1.
And they won then the series, two of the games of the series, like Terry said. They're now 9-17 on the season, 3-6 in the MAC conference. We'll take a look at the baseball now, the weekend that it was. 28 runs as a whole. Like Terry said, 2-1 record. It's been a struggle for the season now, the entire season for the Falcons, 9-17 overall. You know, do you think, Terry, that this could be something? Could this be something right here? Because it's been a struggle, but...
You're right, Juan, absolutely. I think it's a big thing because finally we saw some life out of the Falcons. 18-12 on Sunday, tied for most hits in a season and for a game this entire year. Let's talk about Greg Basilega, 4 for 5, 5 RBIs. Falcons finally bringing the bats out.
Yeah, and he ended up earning Athlete of the Week honors this week for the MAC. And like you said, he had a fantastic week last week. He ended up with 10 hits to 3 home runs for the week. If anything, I think he has to be a key to the turnaround, the only one that's been stepping up for an offense that has been good overall.
Yes.
The only fault has been the pitching so far.
You're right, and the pitching has been a little erratic to start the season. We saw a little bit better this weekend. We saw some of the hitting stats right there. Basilaga, 4 for 5, 2 for 4 for Brandon Howard, 2 for 5 for Corey Brown, 3 for 4 for Jesse Rate, and 3 for 6 for Matt Smith. So you definitely know they're getting a lot of chances at the plate. But back to pitching, a little erratic this weekend, but still getting the job done. You don't like to see those 4 earned runs in 1 inning, but when you're getting that bad production, it doesn't really matter because you're going to come out with a victory.
Exactly. So it's just a matter of having some support from the pitching staff that has over a 5 ERA for the season. And I feel like, you know, with the Falcons, they've taken the lead in most of their games so far. So like if the offense could stay consistent as we saw this weekend, let's just get the pitching support now and finally get some stability. Brett Fitzwater has been really the only one who had a stellar pitching performance last week with 7 innings, giving up only 1 hit. You know, how can we get that from the rest of the pitching staff consistently so we can have a turnaround that is worthy possibly of maybe even a 500 season, which is what they're aiming for so far?
I think we have to talk about how Miami was picked second in the East to start this season, and this is a team we got 2 out of 3 from. So a very big jump for the Falcons from what we've seen previously. You have to wonder if that win against Finley last week, kind of a tune-up game, but finally put them on the right track. Looking ahead, they got this game against Eastern Michigan coming up, and then also a game against series, this weekend against Ohio. If you want to take a look at some of these Eastern Michigan stats. Yeah,
and as we see, BG is better in most of the stats. Again, like we said, run average is still very high, but Eastern Michigan is right up there with them. Batting average, the offense is going to coming into with an advantage, as we just mentioned. So I think, if anything, this would be a key to keep the turnaround, because now we start facing the MAC schedule. Eastern Michigan is a perfect opponent. I think that's right for the pickings for the Falcons to start continuing picking up some momentum.
Now we're talking about the Eagles team that's 12-18 on the season against the Falcons team, 9-17. It's a team that both weren't expected to do much this year. We're starting to see a little bit of a turnaround with the Falcons. See if they can keep the momentum going against a team that maybe is not up to par with the Miami team that they defeated last weekend. Yeah,
and even Miami hasn't had that season that everybody expected to have. But again, it's just a matter in baseball is a matter momentum is who is your next starting pitcher. That's momentum in baseball, in the pros, in the collegiate level, in minor leagues. So again, it's going to come down to the starting pitching, and coach Dennis Schmitz have to really establish this in order for the Falcons to continue, and hopefully in Eastern Michigan this will be kind of the continue for the turning point so far.
And also, whenever you're putting up 18 runs, I don't think it really matters who you're playing. You put 18
true.
runs a game. I think that's a solid strategy in itself.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I mean, if they can keep that up, then it doesn't matter, I guess.
More power to them.
Exactly.
And when we come back, the Frozen Four is set to take place this week. We'll have everything you need to know before puck drops, so stay right here. And welcome back. And the Frozen Four starts Thursday, April 9th, and the championship game will be this Saturday, April 11th. And now here is the remaining bracket for the Frozen Four. You see Omaha is going to take on Providence, and Boston University takes on North Dakota.
And as we see, I mean, it's a Frozen Four that didn't live up to chalk. As we talk about it with the NCAA basketball tournament, we're looking at teams like Omaha and Providence that were not in the top four, whereas on the other side, you have Boston University and North Dakota, the number 2 and number 3. They went through their bracket as they should have. I think it's going to be an interesting, because of that dynamic of the two teams that were not previously ranked in the top 4. One of them is going to end up in the final championship game, so it's going to be like kind of like a little Cinderella factor coming into the Frozen Four.
Especially if we talk about the Friars of Providence, a team that was 4th in their region, beat the number 1 seed Miami, and has just been dynamite entire tournament long. Then you have to talk about Nebraska Omaha. They've been outstanding in the net this entire postseason. Two teams that have been going back and forth, just dominating their opponents, and is setting up a really great struggle. And let's take a look at some of these stats for this Omaha and Providence game. 2.7 goals per game for Omaha compared to 2.9 from Providence. Juan, what other of those stats do you really make out is going to be significant in this contest?
In my opinion, I think the first one that comes to mind, I mean, you hit it on the head, is I think the goals allowed stat is the one that stands out. It's two teams that really excel for their goaltender game. Omaha and Providence, especially, Providence with John Gillis, he's very, very solid goaltender. The only thing with Providence is that 2.9 number. It can be inconsistent, the goals per game. They have a very inconsistent offense. It can be on and off, so it's very unpredictable in terms of how they score. They rely on defense, which is, again, it adds to the 2.1 game. But I think that's the inconsistency in the offense is something that Omaha is going to take advantage of.
Yeah, Omaha goalie Ryan Massa, 28 games played, 1.92 goals allowed. He's been fantastic back in the net this season. When I look at those stats, what jumps out to me is the save percentages. Nearly identical, .928 and .927. These are two teams that are both hot, two teams that haven't been in a long time. The first final Frozen Four in the history of Nebraska-Omaha, and the first one in 30 years for Providence. So these are two hungry teams that are going to, one of them is going to get a shot in the national championship. And you have two teams that haven't been here, two teams that are very familiar with the spotlight, and that is Boston and North Dakota. We're talking about a Boston team whose last championship was in 2009. North Dakota's last was in 2000, but these are two teams that have been 1 and 2 pretty much all season long, the two that we expected to be here for the Frozen Four.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a stat that is not on the graphic right now, but I think really stands out in this game, and is the number of seniors in both teams. North Dakota comes in with 6 seniors on their squad. Boston University only comes with 2. Now, Terry, you said that both teams have been very consistently at the top all season long, but I think this experience factor is going to play into this particular instance of the season. We're talking about games that are very important. The Frozen Four, you have to have that experience to a degree to be able to alleviate the pressure and to be able to withstand any situation where you made it this far and now your season's on the line. You're so close to getting to the championship that you so desired all season.
You're absolutely right, Juan. One of the biggest stats I saw was that 3.8 goals per game for Boston, in a strike contrast to North Dakota's 2.2 goals given up. It's kind of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Which is going to give in this game? This game is almost like a championship game, and that has that atmosphere around it, because whoever wins between this matchup is going to be favored of whoever comes out between Providence and Omaha.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to think that Boston University has sort of a home field advantage as well.
Absolutely.
And also with Providence, so I think that could play into it too. And I think you hit it right on the head. The winner of this game has to be the favorite coming into the championship game.
I think you're absolutely right, Juan. And going from the Final Four on the ice to the Final Four on the hardwood, when we come back, the Final Four this weekend, full of surprises. We'll go over all the madness that happened this weekend and tell you everything that you need to know for tonight's big game. So stay with us. And welcome back. And now we had history on the line this weekend, Juan, as Kentucky was trying to extend their streak to 38-0, remaining perfect. But then they faced the Badgers of Wisconsin. If we take a look at the bracket, we can see how the Badgers came out on top.
Yeah, and I think what happened is that it's something that happens very often in these championship games with the top seeds falling to lower seeds, is that Wisconsin shut the lights out of the building. Wisconsin came away with 50% three-point field goal percentage, and 47% from the field. In these types of tournaments, usually this is the trend. The lower seeded teams outscoring the Kentucky, the higher seeded teams, from three-point land. To me, that's always sets up for the upset. Kentucky's down turnovers down the stretch as well. They only had 6 turnovers for the whole game, but those last 2 at the end, and coupled with the very terrible shot selection at the end, I think Kentucky, surprisingly enough, they fell for the pressure at the stretch.
And if you look at some of those stats, they're very similar. And that makes sense because it was a back-and-forth contest all night long. But it was that final 5-minute stretch at the end of the game where Kentucky just lost their mind and then lost everything they've been doing this season. And they did not seem in sync at all. And finally, they were able to be bitten from behind by this Badger team. You have to talk about Sam Decker and his clutch 3, putting him up 63-60. That really set the tone for the end of the game.
Absolutely, and it's something that Sam Decker's been doing the entire season. He's been one of the, if not the top player in the country, and he's really shown it in this tournament. He's averaging up 20 points per game so far, 61% from the field. Again, here's a player that is carrying his team all the way through, even against the top teams. That also accounts into teams that are lower seeded coming and upsetting the higher seeded teams. Is that player that can carry the team on their shoulders.
And in the other game was not so close because we had the Duke Blue Devils just absolutely destroying the Michigan State Spartans by a score of 81-61. If you look at some of those stats, Duke shooting lights out from the floor, 52% from the field.
Yeah, and three-point field goal percentage, like we said, is something that it was pretty low, but they didn't need at the end. It was so much more of a tougher effort on the part of Duke defensively, and it's a Coach K trademark when it comes to the tournament, is usually teams that can deliver defensively in the later rounds. That's going to be an advantage that Duke's going to have later on in the championship game, is having Coach K at the helm to instill the defensive importance coming into the championship game.
And let's move on to that championship game as we now have Wisconsin versus Duke, a rematch from earlier this season. We got Duke going with about 80 points per game, Wisconsin coming off with 71.9, almost 72 points per game. But we saw both these teams are playing their best basketball right now. Wisconsin already did it once. I wouldn't bet against them again.
Exactly, and it's something that's going to be really key for Wisconsin specifically. It's going to be the foul and the turnover battle, because Wisconsin is a team that doesn't give up many fouls, especially in the paint. When teams penetrate Wisconsin's defense in the paint, they have an ability to really stop the penetration without fouling. And Duke is a team that can hit you from within the paint and from outside the paint. So it's going to be a really uphill battle for Wisconsin. I think stopping Jahlil Okafor, I think it's going to be a key. If they can stop him without and get him in foul trouble potentially as well, I think that's going to slow Duke down to the point where it could be another upset at the championship game.
Yeah, the Kaminsky-Okafor matchup is going to be a very exciting one. And when we come back, we have hot or not. We have topics including baseball, the NBA race for the playoffs, and the Hamburglar. So you're not going to want to miss this. Now welcome back, and now it's time for a little game called Hot or Not. Juan and I have a topic, and we give you, and we're going to give you our opinion whether they are hot
or not.
That's right, Juan. This week we have topics from March Madness to the NBA and everywhere in between. But we're going to start off with some BG baseball. Juan, hot or not?
I'm going to say not. And I understand that they're 4-1 in the last 5 games, but still 9-7 overall. The pitching has been really awful so far. They need the pitching to turn it around, so I don't think they're hot yet.
I think they are hot because those bats were blazing on Sunday, getting 18 runs. You mentioned it. They got those 3 victories last week, and I think they're finally on the upward swing of things, Juan.
Yeah, I mean, we hope to continue it, but again, I think the pitching is going to have to turn it around themselves.
Keeping with the BG baseball team, we got to talk about Greg Bass-Elega. He had an incredible weekend, hot or not?
Definitely hot. Big Hot Athlete of the Week. Like we said, he was 4 for 5 on Sunday, 1 for 3 on Saturday. He had an awesome series against Miami. And you mentioned the offense. He's been the key to the offense. So I think definitely hot.
Absolutely. 2 home runs this week. He's batting them out of the park. I think he's scorching hot, and he's also leading the team in batting average right now. So Greg, definitely of the hot persuasion. Moving on, we got to talk about UK overall. They did not get the perfect season, but Juan, are they still hot?
I think they are, because I think in the overall scope of things, they were going for an undefeated season, but I mean, just take a look at the entire season. People would envy that type of record, still, even without a championship.
I'm going to say not. And here's why, Juan. You know what they envy more than a great season? A championship. Coach Calipari said it's never been done before. It has been done before. People lose all the time. As long as you don't get that national championship, I'm not giving him that season hot status. Moving on, we're going to talk about Andrew Hammond, the Hamburglar in Ottawa right now. The former BG Falcon, hot or not?
Definitely hot. Just have to look at the record. 17-1-2. I mean, that's synonymous with hot. You cannot dispute that. 913 save percentage, 939 for the season. Definitely hot and good for the BG grad.
And I think he's hot as well. It's not just a great start to the season, and a historic start to the season. Andrew Hammond has been fantastic. Like you said, great to see BG grads doing good work in the NHL. And our last topic, we're going to talk about the Miami Heat. Are the Heat hot or not?
No, they are ice cold. They've lost 7 on the last 9. They've been blown out 3 games so far in April. They've lost Chris Bosh. They've lost D. Wade now to another injury, Luol Deng. They're a hospital in there. They're definitely not hot and looking really bad for the rest of the season.
Renaming the Miami lukewarm because they are not hot, Juan. They just have been struggling recently. They were solidly in that 7th seed, but now with a Paul George-led Pacers team, I don't see them making the playoffs. And when we come back, we'll have our picks of the week. So keep it right here to see what we have for this upcoming week of BG Sports. And welcome back. And this week we have 4 games to give you our picks for baseball, softball, March Madness, and the NCAA Frozen Four. And what makes our picks a little better? A friendly competition, of course. We have my picks, Katie and Juan's picks that have been chosen together, and the studio's crew's pick. And after each week we keep track of our records. And right now, Katie's in the middle with that 11-9 record. Yours truly is on top at 13-7, and his studio crew bringing up the rear at 9-11. And we're going to start this week with BG Baseball. With Katie's pick, Juan, what do you guys have?
I think we're going to go with BG. I think the 4-1 record in the last 5 games is a trend. We see that the offense has been lighting up. And I think that coming into the series with Eastern Michigan is very 2 similar teams. And it's a team that BG can really take advantage of that offensive prowess that BG has and carry that offensive momentum despite the pitching and get away with the weekend series.
I think you're absolutely right, Juan. I think BG gets the victory this game against Eastern Michigan. I think the BG bats are going to come back out, and the Falcons are going to continue on that winning streak. And we also have the studio crew also going with the Falcons. We got a 3 sweep right now, everyone on BG Baseball. And moving over to softball, Katie and Juan, what is your pick for the Falcons?
I think we're going to go with the loss. I think Miami of Ohio is going to take this one. The softball team has been largely inconsistent. They have a 12-6 overall record, and Miami of Ohio is a team that can come in and really, I guess, take advantage of that inconsistency because with the bats, especially at BG's side, 264 overall batting average, I think it shows mediocrity, and I think Miami's going to take advantage of that
I'm going with the Falcons. I think the softball team gets the victory, led by Aspen Cyril, and I think being at home is really going to help Bowling Green out, get that home crowd advantage, and lead them to the victory. Studio crew also agreeing with me, going with the Falcons. And I see as a studio crew not really trying to go with their old strategy of going against the grain, now going with Terry Lash. Now we're going to move on to the big game tonight, Wisconsin and Duke. Everyone's talking about Juan. Who do you guys got?
I'm going with the upset. I'm going, and Katie agrees with me, we're going with Wisconsin. I think that I mentioned Jaleel Okafor at the beginning of the show, and I think that it's going to come down to the game in the paint. Wisconsin is masterful and avoiding their own foul trouble when defending the paint. That's going to be the key, in my opinion, in this game. They're going to take advantage of that. Shooting-wise, I think they're going to light up again. They did with Kentucky. They're going to do it again with Duke, and they're going to go with another upset run in the NCAA tournament. The Badgers are going to win the championship.
I'm going with the Blue Devils. I think what's getting lost in all this action about the great upset Wisconsin had on Kentucky, 20-point win from Duke over Michigan State, one of the best teams you'll play in the Final Four. The Duke made them look like a Bowling Green team out there in the Final Four. Duke has just been fantastic, and I think there's no way you can bet against Coach K and the Blue Devils in the national championship game. Studio crew, going with Juan and Katie. They're going with the Badgers as well. Hot team. Can't wait for tonight to see that game. Now we're going to move it over to the ice and the NCAA Frozen Four. Katie and Juan, who you got in the Omaha-Providence matchup?
We have Nebraska-Omaha in this matchup. It's going to be a very, very interesting matchup because both teams was excellent goaltending play. Providence very, very stout defensively, but I think Omaha is going to take advantage. We say with the softball, we're saying with Providence, offense inconsistency. Omaha is a team that does not forgive when teams do not score their goals, and I think that their goalkeeper play is going to be more outstanding. I think they're going to take advantage of a defense that's going to probably stay back a little bit, not take too many risks. They're going to continue shooting the puck and take the game.
I'm going with the Friars of Providence. They're going to end the streak, get back to the national championship for the first time in over 30 years, and I think it's going to be a very, very high-scoring affair. Would not be surprised if we saw maybe a 5-4, a 6-5, maybe even a 7-6 game. Maybe don't be surprised if you see some overtime in there. I like Omaha's chances, but the Providence Friars just have too much offensive firepower. We've seen it recently. We saw against Miami, and we've seen them all tournament long getting into this Final Four matchup. I really like the Friars' chances. And that will do it for BG24 Sports. Excuse me, one more thing about Providence. I think they have a great goaltending setup as well, as I know that we're also going to talk about the studio crew, but first of all, we have to talk about Providence goaltending. Great in the net all postseason long, and I think that's what's going to lead them to victory too. And our studio crew, also with the Friars. Great pick for the studio crew. I think that the Friars are going to get up. Maybe against North Dakota in that national championship game. Should be very, very interesting one.
Definitely. It's going to be a very interesting Final Four, Frozen Four as a whole. And I think, like we mentioned, unfortunately, the winner of this game is not going to have many chances in the championship game.
And it's been a really good tournament. I think we've been really surprised. Minnesota State was the #1 seed going into this. Didn't get out of the first round. I think that shows just how anyone could have won out of those top 16 seeds. It was really upsetting not seeing Bowling Green made it, but you can't complain about the quality of hockey that was played in this tournament.
Exactly, and let's hope that it continues on in the latter rounds. I'm going to go with North Dakota. To me, they're the favorites.
And I think you're right, Juan, and that's all we have for BG24 Sports today. Follow us on Twitter at BG24 Sports Now for breaking scores and news, and follow us on Instagram at BG24 Sports.
Plus, check us out at our YouTube page at youtube.com/BG24 News for more videos. I'm Juan Pimiento.
And I'm Terry Lash. Have a great night, everyone.